Hey everybody, welcome to Unbreakable Success, episode 26. I just had the opportunity to interview one of the people who has become one of my favorite people, Bryan Falchuk. Bryan's the best-selling author of Do a Day. He's a successful executive, but he has something to share with us that all of us at some point need. And for many of us, that need is right now. See, Bryan has a philosophy and strategy that help him overcome some hurdles that at the time seemed impossible. He's managed to lose almost 100 pounds and not only just lose the weight, but run marathons, summit mountains, completely change his diet. He became a vegetarian in a day. And he's also used the same philosophy and strategy to help him get through some really personal challenges, like almost losing his wife to an illness while their son was watching on. So if you have any big goals, big dreams, and if you're dealing with something right now that just feels overwhelming or stressful, please stay tuned because you're really going to get a lot from Bryan in our discussion together. I'm grateful to have met him, and I'm even more grateful to share him with you. So without any further delay, everybody please welcome Bryan Falchuk. Ah, there we go. Cool. Oh, I love that poster. Oh, yeah, I love both of those posters. That's awesome. Yeah. My wife and I were just looking at a couple big Buddha posters for the house. So,
well, the colors of these grabbed me. I was like,
yeah, the colors are amazing. I love that. All right, cool. And
that's pretty amazing behind you.
Yeah, this is us in actually in Disney, believe it or not. I think it's.
I was going to ask if that was Disney. I recognize the trash cans.
Yeah. It does. It definitely has a distinct vibe. Yeah, I think that was outside in Epcot in Italy a couple of years ago. We had a ball.
Nice.
So, all right, let's get going so we can burn through this and do something good. All right, looking good. All right, welcome, Bryan. How you doing today? It's great to have you on the show. How are things?
Things are great. Yeah, thanks for having me, Aaron.
Awesome. Glad you're here. Before we get rolling into this, can we take a minute to just tell people about you, just day-to-day Bryan, what life is like and what you're up to?
Yeah, so I'm a father, a husband, son, uncle, all kinds of other stuff. I'm also an executive at an insurance company, which is not the most exciting part of my bio, but it's a good job. I enjoy it, but yeah, that's like a killer at dinner parties and stuff.
Nice.
But I'm also an author. So I wrote a book last March, and I've been really focused on that. And I'm a columnist for Inc. magazine. And my day-to-day is kind of all of those things.
Nice.
Very full job, very involved and committed father and husband. The book, obviously, is why I'm talking to you right now. That's been a full-time thing. So I get like 6 full-time jobs. I don't know how the math works out.
Nice. And I know the feeling. Yeah. Know the feeling. I think probably most people that are listening right now can relate to the juggling things, especially the entrepreneurs out there that are on both sides of the fence right now, doing a 9-to-5 and building their business. So thanks for taking the time to being here, especially with all that going on. Let's jump into the book. Can you tell us about Do a Day and how did that start for you?
Yeah. So it started, not to make the story too long, but it started way back as a little kid. So I'm, like a lot of American kids, I'm a product of divorce, and there's a lot that was going on. I was 5 or 6 at the time. Little kids don't understand everything that they face at that age. Emotions manifest in lots of different ways. For me, it became an attachment to food. So, all the issues going on at home, food was always there. It never judged me, always felt good. It wasn't leaving, it wasn't moving out, it wasn't arguing. It was just there and good. And my parents were busy. There were 4 of us, plus, the 2 of them going through what they were going through. They didn't really notice how many times I was sneaking in the cupboard, whatever it might be that was just adding the pounds bit by bit. So I became obese. It was partially the food, but mostly it was about that emotional side. And there was depression in that. So that defined a lot of my childhood. And it was in my teen years that I met someone who was able to really help me to lose weight, start to think about myself differently, and start me on a path. Ups and downs, like a lot of people, I lost weight, gained some back, and as life changed and my motivations changed, My reason for losing weight became different. And that's really where the story of the book started to shape up. So the first time for me to lose the weight was about how other people saw me. So it was a self-esteem issue, but it was self-esteem relative to judgment of others.
Yes.
And whether they were judging me or not, they were judging me in here. And that, it could have all been my voice, right?
Yeah, we hear it though.
Yeah, and as a kid, you can't understand that and come to grips with it. You can, I don't want to say can't, but it's very hard,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And to get the kind of guidance and have the maturity to understand that, I wasn't ready for it. So, fast forward to age 30, I became a father, and I've been sort of gaining the weight back bit by bit. I never looked obese again. I say I looked American. No one would have noticed. But if you look at a picture of me today versus then, you're like, wow. I mean, the last time I weighed myself as a kid, I was 248 pounds, and I'm about 6'1", 6'1 and a half. I'm 6'2". My wife says I'm 6'1". She's right.
She wins.
Yeah, I might have been 6'2" then. Maybe I shrank. I think I got up to about 260. I just stopped weighing myself because I couldn't deal with it. So from 260, fast forward to age between 30 and 32, I got somewhere in the low 220s. The highest I weighed was 222. That was the last weight that I measured before Do a Day really struck for me. And that's the moment that the book all came together. So my wife has a chronic illness. In June of 2011, our son was 2, and she was bedridden. This is when she was really in the throes of it. And we didn't think she was going to make it through the summer.
Oh, wow.
So she was losing about 2 pounds a day. There wasn't much more weight to go before she couldn't lose anymore. And her doctor was going on vacation for 6 weeks. And his answer was, well, let's just check in when I get back. I said, hang on a second, do the math. She doesn't have 6 weeks. And he just said, oh, then just go to the ER if you need to. Wow. It's like, wow, where's the compassion? Where's the caring? You have a wife and a mother and a human being who you're supposed to be committed to helping, and you're just like, go to the ER.
That's insane.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild. So for me, there's this moment on June 30th where she's in bed, our son's standing in front of the bed looking on at her, and I'm standing behind him, and it all just hit me. That's where my motivation became clear. So I'm looking on at this little boy who he may not realize it, but he could be losing his mother. And who was I? I had put on a lot of the weight. I was really depressed. I was unhappy. I mean, aside from what I was witnessing with my wife, eventually spouses lose each other in life.
Yes.
Not usually when you're in your early 30s and with a little kid. Usually it's like you've lived a full life together, and we were just starting.
Right.
I had all of that. And I wasn't in a great place at work, and I wasn't physically active the way that I wanted to be, and I wasn't, just all these ands that weren't positive ands. And I was allowing that to bring me down because I didn't really have a purpose that was clear to me. And that's what hit me in that moment in my son. So I woke up the next morning, July 1st, 2011, with a completely different feeling. And I mean, it was like a lightning bolt. I felt this power in my role as his father, and it's about being there for him. I had a good chance of being alone with him. Like, it was just going to be me and him is the way we thought it would play out. So that's a lot of gravity. That's a lot of responsibility.
Absolutely.
And I had, like, who am I role model wise? He's losing his mother potentially and losing his father too, just at a slower rate. And I certainly was not living the way that little boy needed to see at least one of his parents living. So it just became so clear for me and so powerful. And that was a motivation that, while my son isn't within me, for any parent, your kid's within you.
That's still intrinsic, man. That's still in there.
Yeah, and he's not going anywhere. This isn't judgment of others or my perceived judgment of others. This isn't beach season or wanting to get that job or save up enough money to buy that car. It wasn't some temporal kind of surface level thing. This is a permanent, deep, enduring, powerful motivation that is always there. And my role to him, my responsibility to him is always there. And I will say, quite honestly, I've had ups and downs, but that has driven me every single day of my life in a way that I didn't understand before it hit me. And that's when it was all started. That's
amazing. You mentioned it. It's funny how all of us in our own way, we have usually have these some kind of moment or a series of moments And it always amazes me when somebody they can name that date and where they were when a light bulb went off. Let me ask for you, when that day happened, obviously a lot has gone on since then. You've accomplished so many things since then. But was there something in your mind that you knew? I know you had that energy and that feeling there, but what did you feel like at that time you needed to do? Or were you just, what was that like for you at that moment? What were you thinking?
Yeah, so there were a couple of things that became really clear to me. One was, I finally got the motivation, and more importantly, I understood why it mattered.
Yeah.
So what I had worked on before is like, oh, you got to work out more, you got to make better food choices, you got to this, you got to that, without ever really pausing on the why. So I had my why, and I understood how powerful that was. I think that's why it clicked, is getting the power in the purpose.
Yeah.
And that's why I started coaching people within a couple of months, because friends and family started to see, they're like, he looks completely different. He's acting different. I was a different person outwardly, and they got it. And so it was drawing people in.
When you say coaching, what type of coaching did you start doing at that time?
So I did a lot of health and wellness kind of coaching, because people saw how I was losing weight, and they're like, how do I get on that bandwagon? Now, what I will say is that's a gateway drug. So whatever someone comes to me for, whether it's losing weight. And so I became a certified personal trainer. I have never gone in the gym to pump iron with people like that. That's not why I got the certification. It's so I can be more educated in helping to guide people. Whether people come to me to lose weight, to be more active, to change their career, to be a better parent, whatever. That's one little piece of it. And the reality is, you don't change your life by changing one aspect of it.
Right.
So it's a gateway drug to really unlocking that whole. Like, you got to change who you are, and that's why you're having a struggle.
Those are the symptoms, right? We all have different symptoms. Yeah.
Nice. So the coaching I did was what people were seeing me, the light they were seeing me in.
Yes.
Especially those who knew me when I was obese. They're like, how did you transform like this? Can you help me do that? And a lot of them are like people who were healthy and, waking up in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, and they're like, what happened here?
Yeah.
Where did this 100 pounds come from? So that's what it started as, but it's morphed over the years, because it really has always been for me a very holistic, like, there's a reason why you gain weight, and it's not because you didn't go to the gym. Yeah. It's the same reason you didn't go to the gym. There's that baseline happiness, motivation, understanding, like, why are you doing anything? Mm-hmm. You unlock that, these things just start happening.
So tell me how that progressed, because now you have a philosophy now in Do a Day. Yep. And I don't want to push us into this, but now I think you piqued everybody's interest. So you had something real behind this, and within months you were doing something you'd never done before. At what point did that become this Do a Day philosophy, and what is that for you now? This philosophy of Do a Day that the book was about.
Yeah. So the book didn't have a name. The philosophy didn't have a name until January of 2014.
Okay.
And that's when I started to live a vegan lifestyle, or start to eat a vegan diet. And I did that literally by saying, so I looked into it before, and I was always like, oh, but my son's birthday, I don't want to be like the weird guy in the corner not eating the cake. Or like that business trip, everyone's going to the Capitol Grill and having steaks, and I'm like, can I have a side of lettuce? I started to paint all these pictures of things that weren't happening,
right?
But it was like using these future moments to anxiety, push me down into a no. And I'm reading this book by this vegan ultra athlete, and I'm feeling really inspired. And I'm like, you know what? I can just do it tomorrow. It's no one's birthday. I'm not going anywhere. I can do this.
Yeah.
And I literally just said out loud, I can do a day. And that's when the book got a name.
Nice.
So that's the whole philosophy got a name. So what is the philosophy? Well, you've heard the building blocks of motivation. And that's most of what I work on with people in the coaching, or at least the first part is, we got to figure out your why. And that is a lot of back and forth challenging. I can't tell you what it is. There's no workbook section in my book that's like, okay, answer these 6 questions, add lines 2 and 3, and boom, there's motivation. It doesn't work that way. Right. You have to find it for you. I can challenge you. I can give you questions. I can help you on the journey. Mm-hmm. But you have to discover it. If it's going to be real, you have to discover it. So that's the building block. Now from there, and where the words Do a Day, where that all pieces together, is this notion of, I was getting at it with all the reasons why I wasn't eating vegan yet. it comes together in this notion of today. So not yesterday and not tomorrow. So what mistakes have you made before that you're judging yourself around today and making choices today because of those mistakes, that anxiety, that fear, that judgment? And then what things that lay ahead of you that you're scared of, or maybe you're really excited about, but either way, it's pulling you away from right now. So you're making your choices right now based on things that may or may not happen tomorrow. So with that foundation there, then the question is, okay, now you know why, now you got to figure out what. And that's a question of a couple of things. We have to set the right goals. So you have to have a goal that really pushes you, not so much that it's demotivating, like it's completely impossible. But for me, with the weight loss, keeping on that, I lost 100 pounds. Altogether across the 2 times, a little over that, but just about 100 pounds the first time. And then the second time was like 45 pounds. Wow. So, I've been through about 130 pounds, 125, something like that, of weight loss. So I've been there. Now that amount, that's too much for anybody. But to do like 5 pounds is like, that's not really motivating. That's not really going to push you. So if you have a real purpose, that's a big thing. So you need a big goal. Yeah. And then the key is to break it down into pieces that you can tackle one bit at a time. So that's the next part. You get your why, you focus it on a what. Now the question is, how do you actually do it? And that's that really powerful do-a-day approach. And I hinted at it with the whole vegan thing. Yeah. But this is about really a practice of mindfulness. That's why I got 2 different Buddha pictures behind. Right, so how does this all break down? It's a question of today. And that's why, I use the word day a lot in the book. Chapters aren't chapters, they're days. So it's day 1, day 2. I sum up the chapters with the end of the day. This is about a way to separate from the past and also free yourself from that burden of what's yet to come. So if you want to think about that vegan example, all right? Now let's say I'm vegan, but not 100% of the time. And this is true. I'm going to just set up an example. Okay. So there are times, like I said, my son's birthday. Like my wife is an amazing cook, so she loves to bake. She makes this incredible cake, so I have it with him because that's a joy that the two of us share together. Now the next day, I'm not like, oh, what did I do yesterday? I had this cake and it had milk in it and it had eggs in it and deliciousness. So it's all over, right? It's ruined. I'm not a vegan anymore, so now I'm going to go eat a cow. No, I should say like, okay, I did that yesterday. That may not be a choice that I would want to make normally. There's a specific reason for it. I understand why I did it. And it's not a get out of jail free card. I understand like there's a give and a take. Was that the right decision? In that moment it was. I don't have that moment today, so I can do different today. I can make a better choice today regardless of what I'd done yesterday. Nice. If you were yelling at someone yesterday, if you were mean to someone yesterday, yeah, you did do that. And that matters. And you need to understand why you did it and what the impact is and then how you can do better. And then guess what? Today you're going to do better. Yeah. Because otherwise you're not learning from your mistakes, right? Yes. And then it's about the future. So remember when I was saying all the reasons I didn't go vegan before was always around, well, what about this and what about that and that situation? None of that's happening right now. None of those things is here with you right now. You want to talk about losing weight? I had over 100 pounds to lose in total, or 100 pounds that first time. That's too much. How am I going to lose 100 pounds? Well, I'm not losing 100 pounds right now. Right. You going back to school. My wife is studying right now for a degree in functional medicine. And her workload is insane. I think it's worse than when I got my master's, or better. You look at it positively, but it's a lot. And if you look at that whole syllabus all at once, it's like, how can I do all this reading? It's thousands of pages, and I also have a kid to take care of, and I, got friends and family, all these other obligations. Yeah. Well, guess what? You're not reading everything right now. Today, you're just reading the 20 pages or 30 pages or taking this test or writing this paper, whatever it is, today. So do what you need to do today in pursuit of that goal. That 100 pounds, it's a series of days where you make better choices, and sometimes you won't make the best choice, and that's okay because you can always make a better choice when you wake up the next day. Yeah. And that's really important. So it's this life that's free of the weight and the anxiety, the judgment, all of the negativity that comes with what you did before and what you still have to do tomorrow, because none of that is relevant right now.
Yeah, Bryan, I love that. That's awesome. Because so many of when people get caught up when they're trying to they're trying to accomplish anything, whether it's starting a business or like you're talking about losing weight, or even in a relationship.
Oh yeah.
We tend to get so caught up in, what we've experienced with that thing before, or what we don't know, what we haven't learned, or what may go wrong. And I think everybody can agree that most of the time, that's where we hit the wall, because we're so busy looking either in front or behind, we're not seeing where we are right now.
Yeah.
And it kind of causes this paralysis, and it prevents us from doing, in many cases, prevents people from doing and becoming what they want to become. And I think it's so the I don't want to call it simplicity, but the sheer lack of panic that your philosophy entails is it can be really liberating. So, for everybody listening, just I think we can all pause and reflect and say, okay, where have I behaved like that, where I'm so caught up with what happened before that it's preventing me from being who I want to be today? And where have I find myself being so worried about what might happen tomorrow, or who might judge, or where I might trip up, that it's preventing you from even taking that journey towards the success you want because you're worried about the trip ups. So I think it's a powerful way to look at the progress that you're helping people make, and you should be. I really commend you for it, for laying it out there for people, and making an entire book about this. It's pretty amazing. Now, when did the book start to? At what point did you realize, because this was a process for you, and I think it's important for people to hear that, a lot of people listening now, I'm sure, have something in their mind, whether it's the beginning of something or the next evolution of something for them. And, I love being able to have this conversation with you, because I'd love to hear you share, or let you share with people listening. How did you get from the beginning stages of coaching people and developing this idea, and what was the evolution into, okay, this is now going to become a book, which is going to become my movement, which is going to become some of the things that you've began doing beyond the book that I'd like to talk about in a little bit. But how did that evolution happen into the book for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I have been doing the coaching and mentoring stuff as a side thing. I don't want to call it business, because I guess it is, but it doesn't feel that way. So I've been helping people unlock what they can do for themselves for about 5 years. So this was, 5 years, I guess. 2015 in December, I was out in San Francisco for work. I've got a guy who I turn to for guidance and mentoring. We've got really similar backstories. So, he's just someone I've connected with and really been close to. So I was having a mentoring call. He's on the west coast of Canada, so our time zones were aligned. So I'm like, dude, we got to talk. So we had this great call, and we were talking about, long term, where do I want to be and what do I want to be doing? And then he just helped me talk about, okay, how do we step this backwards? I talked about the big goal. Well, how do you break it down into pieces? So what I was talking about on the big side was really big. Yeah. And it's transformational for my life. And so it's like, how do we get back to this right here, right now?
Yep.
And do a day. That word do is really purposeful. It's not one day at a time. It's not like just grit your teeth and get through it. It's do. It's take action.
Yes.
So once you paint this backwards picture of like the dominoes you're going to start to push, you're those dominoes. You need to do something to make that happen.
Absolutely.
And he didn't tell me, oh, you have to write a book. He helped me work through myself. Like, okay, I need to start taking some actions to take this enjoyment I'm getting coaching people on the side and have a much bigger effect. Because that's what it was about. Is I did a vision board for some work with him, and it was, I took a picture of a guy doing a TED Talk, and I superimposed myself on him. So I'm sorry, guy, but I want to be out there changing lives on a much broader scale than I can do coaching. Because even if I did this 24/7, I still couldn't touch as many lives as I want to, because it's really powerful, and it's so enriching. And I get off each one of my calls or each one of these interviews, and I'm so just jazzed up. And so it's like, how do I do this more? So it was scaling it. I went for a run the next morning along the Embarcadero in San Francisco, which is a cool scene along the Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me within like the first tenth of a mile. It's like, I had the philosophy. I'm like, I need to put this into words. And I had been doing a blog. I'm like, it's not enough.
Yeah.
So the rest of that run was literally like the book was clear in my mind. I structured all the chapters. I knew the sections I was going to write about. So basically, the first part of the book is sort of a case study on my life. So I take specific situations where Do a Day has helped me and the struggles I've been through just to help people relate a little bit, maybe help them see, okay, I've got a similar story.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work for Bryan? How can I translate that to my life? You just sort of, through my life examples, you start to get a feel for what the philosophy is. And that's what I structured on that run. I got back to my hotel, took a shower, hit the airport. Right in the terminal, I started just mashing away on my keyboard. I wrote the entire flight back, not during the takeoff and landing when you can't do your laptop, the rest of it. So I was flying to the East Coast. I got probably like 5.5, 6 hours of solid writing beyond the terminal. I wrote probably 35-40% of the book, at least the first draft, right there on that flight. And I was just like, I have to keep going.
That's beautiful.
So just taken with it. So I wrote that thing. I fly a lot for work every week, basically. I wrote that thing in about 2.5 months. And then the editing was about a year.
Hey, of course. Of course. Yeah. But that's beautiful. That's amazing. Everybody listening, I want you to pay attention to what Bryan was saying, and because it's real easy to miss something you said, Bryan. You're basically brainstorming or talking with this mentor, and you had this, as you describe it, what you had in your mind was huge. Mm-hmm. And almost too big, I think was the word you used. And we all get that. We have these ideas that get so big, they seem insane, and a lot of times we can lock it away. Fortunately, you didn't, and you took that step to have a mentor, somebody that you're going to talk to about this thing, this dream, this idea that you have in your mind, and you were able to deconstruct it backwards.
Yeah.
And I really want people to pause and get that, because it's easy to hit the brakes when it's just too big, because it's easy to just gaff it off and like, that made for a great conversation over a pint, but in reality, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But just taking the simplicity of just taking that step of looking at what it is that at the moment isn't there, but looking at it backwards and deconstructing it into, okay, if I were to get there, what steps would I take to get there? And for you, was this book, and in doing that, it sparked this amazing amount of action in you because you knew why you were doing it, and you knew what your end game was, and you just went full throttle at it, and that's amazing. I to you guys listening, I want you to get that. Just don't worry about how big it is. Just start looking at what you can do to get there.
Yeah.
Because that will, you're gonna have the answers, and with you, I'm sure if you hadn't, you may have done it anyway, but the fact that you were able to get it out verbally and have somebody challenge you with that, and then be able to clear your mind and go for that run and just start putting some action into it, that's pretty amazing. So what's happened for you since then, since the book got done? What's been new? Because every time you do something like that, it turns into something else. So what did it turn into?
So it's been huge, and there's one thing I want to point out with that like too big kind of goal, and I'm gonna let people in on a secret. It goes right back to that judgment. Is like, so I was afraid to tell people that TED thing, or actually the other thing I said was like, I want to sit across the couch from Oprah out in the woods as she does Super Soul Sunday, and everyone would laugh. And what I said is, and this is that judgment is like, I know that's ridiculous, but hang on a second. Look, I'm not talking to Oprah right now. So what do I have to lose? Mm-hmm. Someone just asked me the other day, is like, I want to ask this person this thing, but I don't know if they're gonna say yes. Well, are they saying yes right now? No. So what happens if they say no? Nothing. You're no worse off. So I'm saying this about the book, or I'm saying this about this too big goal. And the truth is, none of it's happening right now. So what do I have to lose? I might as well give it a shot. So that fear and that like people are going to laugh, who cares? None of it's happening anyway. So you literally have nothing. It's not like all of a sudden something fell apart. No, you had a goal and either you made it or you didn't, but you weren't doing it yet. So there's no need to worry about failure because there's nothing to fail on.
Exactly.
You don't lose anything. So since taking that leap, what I realized is as I wrote the book, that process alone was valuable for me. And I was talking to someone else recently, and they were like, you could have just stopped there, and it sounds like you would have gotten enough. And I was like, I started to hedge, and I'm like, well, if no one buys the book, then you go through moments of like, I'm gonna sell 1 million copies to,
yeah,
my mother's not even gonna buy the book, kind of thing. This back and forth. But I'm like, look, if nobody buys it, I'm fine with that. I'm literally fine with that because I got so much out of what I did, and my coaching work, my mentoring work is better. So I got to a place where I had detached from that need to be like, this has to be a success and I have to get to that big goal. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, I freed myself from the anxiety around the tomorrow. I started to do a day around do a day. That's kind of meta.
Yeah.
But so much has happened because of that. So I've been reaching out to different podcasts, different influencers, people like yourself that I find interesting and I like what you're doing and say, hey, here's what I'm about. Maybe we could talk sometime, or, could I be on your show? Because I'm not on their show yet, so I have nothing to lose by asking. And I've done about 50 of these things already. Most of them haven't come out yet, but it's just from reaching out and saying, hey, why don't we have a talk about it? And it's resonating. Yeah. And, that's how I got this writing job with Inc. is I've got a regular column with them every week. You can catch me on their website. Writing about motivation, writing about business. And, this isn't just weight loss. This is weight loss and wellness. This is business stuff. This is relationship stuff. This is running a marathon, which kind of is a wellness, but having done one might be the opposite. Like it's its own beast. Yeah. But it's so many different life situations. So I have taken the momentum, those dominoes that I talked about before, yes, and I am executing on making them happen. So I just got booked on a TED Talk. Now it's a TEDx. Awesome. It's not the ultimate domino, but that's a step there.
That's big. That's nice.
Stuff is happening.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Congrats on the talk. When's it going to be? Where is it going to be?
It's going to be in New Jersey in March, and I'll give you, my website and all that, and people can find out there. The dates are still getting finalized, but okay. I just started my second book on Friday. Okay. So things are happening.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I definitely I would love to check that talk. I'm a Jersey guy, so I'm in Jersey right now. So right. We may have to make that a date and
get to meet in person.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. So, well, I don't know how much of the second book you want to give up. What's the premise of your second book? If you can give us that.
No, I'm happy to, and it's something that's come through my coaching and my own practice, and my own education around mindfulness and ties to this guy. So it's called the 50-75-100 solution. And for most people, that's all I'm saying. And I'm being real. I don't write fiction, so that's the closest thing I have to a mystery novel. It's like, what could it be? I just told the finance people at my job, and I'm like, it's got numbers in the title. You guys are going to love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a relationship book.
Okay.
So it's about how to unlock solving your toughest relationships. Now, this isn't the ones where there's like genuine mental illness or addiction problems. That's that's a different kind of situation, and you should have professional help with that. So setting those situations aside, it's, spousal problems or significant other problems like relationship, romantic relationship kind of issues. Almost everybody goes through that. Even the best of marriages have tough moments.
Absolutely.
Problems as a parent, especially getting into those teen years. How do you deal with those difficult situations? Troubles at work. I've had some difficult moments at work. I talk about some of them in Do a Day. How can you change the situation, especially if you're not the problem or you don't perceive yourself to be? So I get a lot of like, well, Tim's doing this to me, or I don't know why she's acting that way to me, or it's always they to me. Mm-hmm. The world is doing this to me, and I'm just here, and all this. I can't make it better because they're crazy.
Yeah.
I mentioned that mental illness. Let's not go labeling everything to get out of trying to solve it. So what I say is, just because you're not the problem, real or in your head, doesn't mean you can't be the solution.
Absolutely.
And that's what 50, 75, 100 is. You own half the problem. In reality, I show you how you actually own 75% of it. If you own 75% of it, you can completely change it because that's more than enough to get to that 100%.
Nice. I love
So
it.
50, 75, 100. I mean, when I say I just started it, I literally just started it. So I don't know when it'll come out. I'd like to have it out before that TED Talk because actually I was going to talk about motivation, which is important. I think this would make a great TED Talk. So even that one, I've got 2 other TEDs that are talking to me. So it's going to be coming out there soon, but watch this space. There's more coming.
Beautiful. I appreciate that, and everybody pay attention. And I love this. I love this conversation we're having because, you've literally taken all of us from, a life issue that sparked a powerful idea, which is pretty much where most powerful ideas come from. Somebody dealing with something really important to them in their life, and it sparks an idea, and you're taking it. I don't want to say full circle yet, but you took the ball and ran with it, and you've gone through all these progressions almost immediately to the point where you had an idea, and now you have this book, and you have this TED Talk lined up, and a second book in the works. So, yeah. For everyone who out there we all have this something that we want to succeed at, but you're definitely a great example of what it can look like when you just start doing. And speaking of doing, share with us, because one question some people may have is, we've all heard the term one day at a time.
Yeah.
So how does your philosophy, this do-a-day philosophy, because it's really powerful, but how do we separate that, the do-a-day philosophy, from someone who say, well, yeah, I've heard, one day at a time before.
Yeah.
How's this different? Can you share that with us a little bit?
Yeah, and I touched on this a little bit before, but it is that word do, which is really important. Is things don't just happen. You don't just like wake up and everything works out the way it is. And by the same token, we all have challenges, we all have struggles, and do-a-day is about how to overcome them. You don't just kind of like bear down, get in your shell, and wait for them to pass. The storm will pass, sure, but like, are you any better for it? Have you grown? Have you gotten to a different place, or is it just going to be the next hailstorm is going to hit you?
Yeah.
So you have to figure things out. You have to create a path, and you have to learn how to execute in that path in a way that is self-reinforcing. Not just to clench your jaw and let things hit you. Not to just sit there and get an argument after argument after argument with someone and not actually move the relationship forward. There's plenty of people who are married that way.
Absolutely.
Which is constant, like, your roommates or your like coworkers in your home, taking care, paying the bills and raising the kids, but you're not actually married. That's one day at a time. It's like, I just have to get through this.
Yeah.
This isn't a get through this kind of world. That is so uninspiring and uninteresting to me.
Yeah.
Get yourself through this. Get yourself to a different this.
Yeah.
That's do-a-day is an achievement story. It's not a weather the storm kind of story.
I love it. Everybody, I hope you caught that. This is not grin and bear it and just survive the day. And Bryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but your premise behind this is to take over your day and create something out of it. And those are such two different things. It's night and day. The survival mindset as opposed to the surge forward mindset. And I really appreciate what you're sharing with people to help them, not just weather the storm, as you said, but to actually, be the storm in your life create, be the one that has the courage to create some chaos and do something that's going to get noticed and scrutinized and criticized, but turn it into something that's helpful and powerful for people to grow and progress with. So I appreciate that from you.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a couple questions. This is the Unbreakable Success podcast. I kind of put this show together as almost as a bit of a virtual mastermind for people, so people can come and listen to people like you and share some ideas that's almost collaborative that we can all learn from. So a lot of masterminds have a hot seat moment where we put you on the spot and ask you some questions about you. So, we're going to keep this cordial, but let me ask you a few things. Number one, what's a recent struggle that you have either just recently gotten through or something that you're working on now, and how are you dealing with that? What's a struggle for you that people, whether or not they can relate to, somebody will, and that's the purpose of asking it. But what's been something for you that you've had to work on?
Yeah. There's two I could talk about. I got to see which one would be less dangerous to my survival. I have a difficult situation at work with
Okay.
someone who's essentially trying to get me fired. And that has been the greatest test of the 50, 75, 100 approach that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And I will say, before understanding that way of being, if I was outwardly calm, I was inwardly, my heart would be racing. I might think I look calm, but you could see the tensing in my jawline and all that. So staying mindful and focusing on two things have helped me get through it in a way that, so this tracks my heart rate.
Okay.
So I went back after a particularly tense interaction, or what would have been a tense interaction, saw that actually my heart stayed nice and calm. So it wasn't just that I perceived it to be that way. I actually stayed calm, and we got through the problem very well, and they're not trying to take me down anymore.
Beautiful.
Had I not responded the way I responded, no doubt this screaming match, argument, accusations would still be flying right now. But I put them to rest because I kept myself where I need to be, and I had this difficult interaction that I owned and brought it down. So I let go of the whole notion that I'm being attacked and, this is happening to me. This is just happening, and it just is what it is. And I can get through this because I have the knowledge to respond to the things that are being said. And I also have the maturity and the presence of mind to be able to control myself in a situation where I'm being attacked, number one. Number two, I recognize that while I may not agree with the methods and I may not agree with what's being said, that other person who's, an adversary in this situation actually just wants to be happy. And it sounds really simple, but it's powerfully true. So, to recognize that and to try to focus on that, it's like, I don't have to like any of it, but they're not doing it just to be evil.
Yeah.
They're not doing it to hurt me. And that's the why are they doing this to me? They're not doing this to me. They're doing something for themselves. Now, they may not appreciate the impact it's having on others, but their intent isn't to just go around harming people blindly.
Yeah.
Having that presence is what allowed me to interact differently. And I actually saw when the attacks were flying, normally I'd go in defensive mode or yelling mode or whatever. And I let them go off. And I said, I hear what you're saying. Can you tell me what it is you're trying to achieve? Because I want to get where this is going so I can see if I can help us get there. And they were kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
They weren't expecting an ally in the process.
Yes.
They were expecting someone that they could take down. And it was like, oh, well, this is what I want to have happen because I need this to help what I'm trying to achieve. It's like, okay, I can't quite do that, but what if I'm able to do this, which I think, and it's like, whoa, yeah, I didn't think about it that way. It was a completely different interaction, but our CEO was brought in. I mean, when I say someone's trying to get me fired, it was literally this is the big meeting, That's really powerful. So I got through it by literally living what I tell other people to live. And that's really important because, what validity is there in a process if you can't do it yourself and you to go around preaching it?
Yeah. I appreciate you being willing to share that, and I really appreciate that you sharing that specifically because it's so easy for any of us to look at someone like yourself who's being a thought leader and sharing ideas and philosophies and things that we can live by. It's easy to look at someone like you, someone who people look up to, and think, but they don't understand what it's like to go through A, B, or C. And the reality is, all of us, you, me, all of you listeners out there, we've all got stuff that's just ugly that we have to deal with. Life doesn't always hand us roses, but for you to show that just being mindful, as it were, to put a simple explanation on it, and live what you believe through the process, that is, as you said, that's powerful. And I appreciate you for sharing that because I think a lot of people will relate to relationships that seem like somebody's coming at you, and you're able to handle that in a way that comes to a good resolution. So let's jump into a second question. What's working best for you right now in your mission, in this Do-A-Day mission, in your mission as building your platform? What's working best for you at this point?
Like sort of like business idea, that kind of thing, or just personally?
In relation to your mission, this mission of being a thought leader and building your platform and your brand, what's working best for you as far as that? And it could be a personal thing that's helping you towards that, because it's all intertwined, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I just didn't know if you meant like a specific tool, like, some website I'm using or whatever. No,
I'm giving you freedom.
Yeah, freedom. Freedom's all right. Freedom's good and paralyzing if you don't use it right. So I think it's really that letting go across the board. It's the letting go of the fear that someone's going to say no if I ask them, hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you like to have me on your show? Because it's like, who am I to ask that kind of thing? Well, guess what? It's perfectly fine. And worst case scenario, they say no. So letting go of the fear of rejection, the fear of the future, right? Yeah. So letting go of that and just putting myself out there and not being afraid. I'm very vulnerable in the book. I share things. I just shared a story that is pretty raw, pretty real. And like I said, I got to figure out which story was the least dangerous to share. I don't know if I picked right. We'll see. But yeah, just being okay with putting things out there, whether it's me or trying to be a part of something, that has worked incredibly well. And it's been really enlightening for me around all the times I haven't done that and just sat there wishing. Yeah. It's like, you can't sit on the side waiting for the pretty girl to ask you to dance at that school dance, or, you got to get up and say something. Yeah. Else you're just going to eat cookies and drink fruit punch and go home. Sounds really good too, but...
Cookies are good, but cookies aren't the goal, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That is such a big thing, to just be willing to ask those uncomfortable questions or be scared of something not working out. You got to take the motion. You got to put your thoughts in motion and go ahead and ask. I appreciate that. That's powerful stuff. Well, and you've already hinted on this because you told us about your book that's now in the works, but what do you see as the next evolution for you in your in this mission that you're building?
Well, so this book was not the next. I was going to do a second book, which I'm still going to do, but a follow-up to Do-A-Day that's other people's stories. Okay. So almost every day I get something from someone who's been touched by the book, and so there's some stories out there that I've wondered if it would work in some more extreme situations. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it seems to be like there's, a guy who, unlike me, did lose his wife in their 30s. And he's a couple years on now with that process, and he's an inspiration to other widowers. So there's something in that story. It's another person who OD'd on cocaine and was in a coma and has turned his life around. I mean, there's some big stuff out there that it's like, look, I've been through some things. I haven't been through those things. And it's not a competition. It's not, whose hardship was worse than the others. The reality is we all go through things. The grass is never green anywhere. It's all a question of what's relevant to you, what shapes you, and how you get through it. So not a comparison of, what you went through is worse or I went through more. It's not about that. We all grow. We all have things we need to achieve. So that was one piece of it. And the other is pushing ahead with getting the message out there. So in a perfect world, and I say this in the book, so I'm not, there's plenty of people at work have read me saying this, I would be doing this full time. I would be out speaking regularly, doing appearances, podcasts, TV, whatever. It's not about attention, not about celebrity. It's literally, I wrote the book to help people. I couldn't help enough people on my own. So anything that lets me scale spreading the message up, I want to be a part of. I don't care about making money. People are like, oh, if you sell enough of the book, you're going to retire. I'm like, let me let you in on a secret. Average book sells about 250 copies a year, and you make $4 per book. So, do I make more than $1,000 a year in my job? Yes, I'll put that out there. So I'm not ready to retire yet. But I do believe if what you're doing moves the world forward and changes lives or helps people change their own lives, the money will work itself out. So to get to a place where the message is just full time, I'm out there trying to inspire people, I think I can create a life around that. And that's what I'm working with. That's that too big kind of goal. That's what I'm working towards.
Well, I tell you, Bryan, just talking to you and listening to you share this story and what you're doing and the progress you've made in just such a compressed amount of time, I've absolutely no doubt you're going to be flying across the planet doing these talks on a regular basis. I appreciate it. So speaking of scaling your message, how can people best support you, and how can people reach out to you to get support and share in your service and work with you if they are so inclined?
Cool. So there's a one easy place to go to. You can go to doadaybook.com. So I have everything there. You can buy the book there. There's a store. And I will say for your listeners, I'm going to put a $4 discount code for you guys. Just go to doadaybook.com/unbreakable discount. You can remember.
Beautiful.
So you go there, you'll get a code, and you can buy the book directly from me in paperback, $4 off. It's even cheaper on Kindle and iBooks and Nook and all those other platforms if you want to get an ebook. But I at least help you with that. So you can buy the book. It's in print. You can buy a signed copy. Every format of ebook out there. It's on audiobook now, so you can get the book. You can find my Inc. articles there too. Just go into the media link. You can find me right on Inc. If you want to read what I'm writing there. Every week there's something new. And you can follow me on social media. So I've got 2 screen names that I use pretty much everywhere. There's Do a Day Book, so at Do a Day Book on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/doadaybook. Or you can follow me personal. I'm at Newbody, NEWBODI. So that's my main account that I use on Twitter and Instagram. So at Newbody.
Awesome.
Just, I'm out there constantly. If there's one thing I've learned about this whole thing and publishing a book, it is a huge social media endeavor.
Yes.
So you can find me multiple times a day on social media. You have to.
Nice. Well, I definitely appreciate, on behalf of the entire audience, thank you so much for your generosity, offering that discount to everyone. I'm telling you, people, discount or not, you need to go out and get Bryan's book. I'm in the midst of reading it right now. It's Bryan is the Real Deal. And please reach out to him. I will make sure I link up every single thing, every way of getting in contact with you. I'll have it posted on the website so people can check it out, get to you with just a click of the mouse, and we can help spread your message. So everyone out there, please make sure you get this book. Make sure you tell somebody or a couple people about it when you do, and help grow Bryan and get this message out there. It's definitely something that's needed these days, because people have a tendency to get overwhelmed. We are in this, as you know, we're in this, there's so much information, it can become a distraction, and, living by your principle helps us keep things in check and remember what's important for us. So thank you so much for doing what you do, and definitely thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, I loved it. It was awesome. It was good fun.
Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate your time. And all of us here will be in touch with you soon. And congrats on the book. And we look forward to reading the next one. Thanks, Bryan.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Hey there, it's Aaron. Thank you so much for being here. I want to ask you something. If you got something valuable from this episode, I'm going to ask you to do 2 things. Number 1, make sure you're subscribed so you get notified every single time I release an episode. And number 2, please make sure you stop by aaronkeithhawkins.com. There's always some free training for you to make sure you're creating the success you actually want in your business and in your life. I'm so fortunate to be able to share with you, and I'm grateful that you're here. Thank you for being part of this family, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon.